Queentown.
Queentown. What up? What up? What up? What up? It's another week.
It's Black History
We
Month.
missed y'all. Y'all missed us. It is Black History Month.
I'm black, y'all. I'm black, y'all. I'm black as black.
We still as black as we was.
Yeah.
Before Black History Month, because Black History is 365. Yeah. But I'll take the month.
Sure.
Whatever. But I've been watching, a lot of good TV. I was able to watch Malcolm and Marie. Did you the Zendaya and John David Washington movie?
First of all, there were so many. So I love a good monologue. I think that's why the monologues in Scandal never annoyed me. I love plays because I love words and being able to capture that. So I know a lot of people were complaining about their monologues and stuff like that, but that was probably
it's an acquired taste.
That was probably my favorite part of the movie.
If you don't like monologues, if you don't like dialogue, if you don't pay attention, this movie is not for you.
It's not.
Which is completely fair.
Yeah.
And it's in black and white. So you really have to
but the cinematography,
concentrate on this fucking movie.
And I was listening to something that Zendaya had said beforehand of because so many people were like, wait, they're arguing, but they get every word that they want to say out. That's not how our argument actually works. And the whole concept was, but what if we actually listened to the whole argument of what someone was saying? So that's why they never cut each other off.
Because usually, right. Or you're so busy trying to think of what you want to say, you're not listening to them.
Exactly. And this forces you to listen to everything that they have to say. Yeah. Yes. But no, I loved it. I think, and of course, I feel like commentary comes out so quickly, but I feel like there are folks who, and they even talk about this in the movie, but put a political lens on it. So some people are like, this is just a white man writer using these black people as a mouthpiece to talk about his gripes with the film industry that he couldn't say as a white man, but he could put John David Washington on it as a black man. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's true. I
didn't even think about
but
that.
I was going, I was going into this for the art of it, and because so much of, and I'm just taking Zendaya's word for it, but there were so many things because she said, hey, can you write a movie for me? That everything he wrote down, she and John David was like, yeah, this
had influence over.
Yeah, or this is a topic.
That's how do we her interview.
How do we say this as black people? This is the topic. Now y'all have to tell me how this would play out in a conversation.
How this, yeah. Because some of the stuff I was like, oh, this is a good point, and then I turned to Ruben and be like, oh, hey, man wrote this, because it sounded so. The authentic. You'll get it. The knife scene was just everything. But oh my god,
and even
it sounded so authentic. But it sounded like a black person wrote it. I was like, a white person wrote this.
So the background is
I don't know. I was impressed.
The background is Zendaya, who's amazing. If you haven't seen Euphoria, watch it. I started watching Zendaya.
It's the guy from who did Euphoria. Right?
Yeah. But she told Sam, who's the writer, director, producer of Malcolm and Marie, during the beginning of quarantine, hey, can you write a movie for me? And so they started writing this, and they talked about they wanted to keep their crew from Euphoria still employed because this is the panoramic, so people wasn't employed. Yeah. So then they talked about the process, and Sam was like, I would send 5 pages to Zendaya. I always say Zendaya, but Zendaya, and then she would come back with notes, or then when they looped John David in it, then they would come back and he would say, no, let's do this, whatever. So even it wasn't and I'm not clearly in the film industry, but the finished script, then you read it and
it wasn't
from it. It was they were building.
And it was just all him.
Yeah, because Zendaya and John David are also producers too. Yeah, on it.
Yeah.
But no, I feel like it was a great piece of art, and it's something that people are going to have dialogue over of I can't believe he said that, or because it's just one night of a fight between a couple and you kind of see it played out.
It gets deep though.
It does.
And see, Ruben tries to spend the night trying to defend Malcolm ass. And by the end of the movie, I was like, Malcolm still ain't shit. Mm-mm. Malcolm still ain't shit. But I will say I did see some of myself in Malcolm. I think it was I would see Zendaya would say something, I'm like, oh, I understand. And then Malcolm would say something, I'm like, ooh, I'm like that. So I'm an asshole sometimes. I felt like I understood both perspectives, although ultimately, as far as the main issue of the crux of the film, I think Zendaya was rightfully upset. But yeah, it kind of breaks off. And when you're a couple, you literally, these little things that you kind of like keep adding up. I'm not going to say nothing. And then it'd be that one thing, and it'd be like, all right, nigga, I'm going to lay it out.
And she said it. She was like, I think at the beginning of the night when they came home, like, I think we should just go to sleep. Like, nothing, I know you and I know how you're going to react, and nothing is good is going to come out of this conversation. And I feel like that is me in the majority of arguments of like, this is not going to solve a resolution. Like, there's no resolution going to come from this. So there's no point in either of us talking. But then they continue to talk. And then you kind of see the clusterfuck that ensues. But I think too, I think what I enjoyed too was in the film, they don't say their ages, but she's younger than him, but she's more mature in the entire night of like,
oh, absolutely.
She's more self-aware. She's more mature. She's like, I see the best in you. It's almost like I felt like she knew she was kind of in control in a sense, because if you know how a person is going to react, you are able to control and maneuver them to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
Very aware.
Yeah. Even that kitchen scene, she knew what she had to do to get him to see a point that she was trying to make.
To get his attention.
Yes. And she did exactly that.
The more he talked, I was like, at first I'd be like, oh, dang, Marie, dang, you kind of fucked up. But then the more he would talk, I'd be like, hold up. That's why she did what she did, or why she said what she said. Okay. It was weird for me. I mean, I think Zendaya did a great job. I like Zendaya's performance in the movie better than I like John David's. I think it was something about his monologuing that I didn't. I don't know. I didn't really feel the essence of the character through him, but I definitely felt the essence of the character through Zendaya. But I will say, seeing her in some of those sexual scenes, literally, I was like, no.
Oh, because you know,
like
from
eyes
Disney.
covered, like, oh my god, I feel terrible watching, like, this young woman that I saw grow up. Clearly, she's grown as fuck, and she is like, there's literally nothing wrong with what. So
I never watched her in anything Disney, so I knew she existed in the realm of like that, but I never saw her as that. So it's not difficult for me to see her as a young grown-ass woman in this, because I didn't see her in what she did on Disney. I just knew she.
And also, I have to go back to your point. I have to go back and look at her filmography, but I feel like I've only ever seen her play high school students, even on Euphoria, which is a very mature show. She doesn't really have sex scenes like she did in this movie. And also, like, you know, even like the Spider-Man movies, high school. Euphoria's high school. Disney Channel, she was in high school. I think this is also just the first time I've ever seen her
acting as a grown woman. Yeah,
for real. Like as a grown sexual being. So it's not, like I said, it's literally, it was nothing had to do with her, which is like older sister looking at little sister, like, oh my god, I can't believe she like kissing his, what she doing? You know, but I think she did a good job. What else was on this week?
WandaVision. I don't want to give any spoilers.
I think we're 5 episodes.
Yeah, but episode 4, the fire got hot, and then episode 5, it was like boom. Like it made me to the point
I need to rewatch it.
And I realized like I'm not the only one, because this whole weekend I've gone back to watch the Marvel movies in order. So I'm like, I feel like I forgot something.
Oh, have you?
After watching WandaVision. So I'm on Civil War right now.
Okay.
But to go back and watch it, for those of you who don't know, me and Nina love Marvel.
Yes.
So WandaVision is on Disney Plus, is part of the whole MCU.
MCU universe.
My girl.
Oh, MCU.
Yeah. Yeah. My girl Tiana.
Not universe twice.
My girl Tiana Paris plays Monica Rambeau. I'm obsessed with Tiana Paris. She is
Survivor's Remorse is, I think, where I met her, or
Dear White People, the movie.
Loved her acting.
Yeah, she would play a little supporting role in the
I forgot she was there.
She's amazing. I think she is one of the most beautiful women in the world.
And she's gorgeous.
And she's playing Monica, and I'm excited. Black Girl Magic in Marvel. Love to see it.
Yes.
So yeah, I've been watching that, and I
was sleeping on the first few episodes. I was like, "What the hell is going on?" But yeah, finally episode 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, I understand.
I love when series bring me back, because I feel like Watchmen did that shit. But that was like 7 whole episodes that I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then everything just started to make sense. And I was like, oh, this is riveting. Like, I love what you're doing here. Keep doing it.
Keep doing
but WandaVision
it.
was like, what am I? Is this like for kids? I was like, is this just for kids? What is going on here?
Yeah, I didn't understand what was going on.
I was like, is this separate?
I should have known Marvel. Marvel never, I won't say Marvel never disappoints, but Marvel hardly misses.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for X-Men and now Spider-Man is going to be in the MCU.
Yeah.
I guess they did include him in the MCU, but just having all of the characters back together, because some of them were sold off. Oh, the Fantastic Four can now be included in the MCU.
Yeah. And
so
now
it's going to be cool to see how they expand.
Yeah. And now with, I was reading an article about with Disney Plus and with streaming, like now they're able to also, they don't have to solely rely on big budget movies to tell the stories. Like now it's, now we can have a show where we can expand these characters and do all these other things with like secondaries, superheroes and stuff like that. So now we can even get more and not just have to wait till like the big budget films and, the theater and stuff come out. So even with that, it's like, are we going to get a very specific spinoff of something else now that normally if it was just movies, maybe they wouldn't get a movie, but now they can get a series of 30-minute episodes.
Is that I really want them to do right by Storm. Like, I'm tired of seeing these, and we can get into our colorism episode bag some other day, but in the comics, Storm versus in the movie Storm, skin tone just don't match.
Yeah.
And I feel like she just has not been done justice. I mean, not saying, and even when I look like at Halle Berry's, I think her best performance is probably Days of Future Past. As far as like Storm is concerned, but like I just feel like in general the character has never been served, especially not in this new the girl who played Aaliyah. All right, so it's getting into February, or no, we're almost mid-February. I cannot believe that we're already in February. Like I feel like time has just flown by.
It's a construct.
But anyway, It is at this point. I don't know. Some days feel like a year and other days feel like a minute. I'm just not sure. And tax season coming up. As we all know, this pandemic got everybody pockets hurting, or everybody kind of looking at their finances differently. And so I wanted to, we talk about finances all the time, me and Dana do, because we're nerds and we like to talk about money and salaries and things. But, I understand that not all of my friends are like that. So this week we wanted to invite a personal finance expert onto the show, to talk about how to get right in 2021. It's not too late. We're still in month 2. You can still get right. And so, Dana, if you want to go ahead and introduce our esteemed guest.
Yes. So this week we have Darla Bishop joining us. Darla works in Washington, D.C. as a healthcare consultant. She's a 2-time University of Michigan graduate and Detroit native who is hardly home but always repping, thanks to being a military spouse who moves when the Army tells her to. In addition to surviving a pandemic by staying in the house, thank you, she's finalizing her doctorate in health policy, raising 2 super smart kids, and managing her small portfolio of businesses and rental properties. Darla is also a Leo born under a Scorpio moon and Jupiter square. Welcome, Darla.
Thank you so much for having me. In case you all haven't caught, I do want to mention that I also happen to be Nina's sister. I didn't put it in the bio, but it's true.
Yes, I've known our guest my entire life. And that is not an exaggeration. We shared bedrooms, and y'all know, if y'all know me, y'all know my spreadsheets that I keep every single month, and all the money knowledge that I currently have, which is barely anything. I get it all from this girl right here, Darla. And it's funny when Dana said Darla Bishop, I'm like, Darla Bishop. Oh, right, because that's not her given name, her married name. It's still weird hearing it out loud. But yeah, welcome Darla. She's amazing. And so Darla. I mean, like I said, like her bio says, Darla is actually in the public health field, currently getting her PhD. She's going to be an entire doctor very, very soon. But she also, just knows a lot about personal finances. So Dana and I have been trying to get her on the show, and I've actually tried to get Darla on my last show, but it just never worked out.
Yeah, this is perfect.
So tell us, like, from your perspective, because I'm your sister, so I know like almost everything that happened in your life. But from your perspective, like, how did you get into personal finance, right? Because like public health and personal finance, like a lot of people don't correlate those two.
I'm actually so glad that you brought them up in the same category. So health-wise, you may or may not know that one of the most impactful determinants of your health is your zip code. Where you live has a stronger correlation with how long you live, whether you live with disease, and how you fare once you have those diseases. And so you're like, well, what does that have to do with money? Guess what determines where you live? Is how much money you have, right? Like how much you can afford in terms of a rent or a mortgage payment. And what also determines your school districts if your parents aren't paying for private school. Also, where you live. What determines whether you have access to a hospital? Where you live. Okay, so see how it's a cumulative impact, right? And so public health and finances do go together. But personally, this actually started with, I went to a summer program, thank you to the Detroit area pre-college engineering program, DAPSEP. When I was
yes,
DAPSEP.
I'm sure we got lots of DAPSEP alumni who are listening to this.
Thanks to DAPSEP, I got the opportunity to spend I think 4 weeks at the University of Michigan when I was a high school sophomore. And growing up in the suburbs, you see how people live a little bit differently than you, but you don't necessarily know the ins and outs, right? And so being away at a sleepaway camp at a university with people with big money, you're like, oh, people really out here living different. One of the people in my class, in my little cohort for the Michigan Math and Science Scholars Program, got special permission to drive his Range Rover to and from campus because he had to be at lacrosse camp on 3 days a week.
Oh, wow.
Right. So, and here I am leaving our little special science class at lunchtime with that little box of tuna salad and crackers with a little red plastic spoon that you unfold to eat. And that was my lunch. just to show you the spectrum. And I was like, okay, so clearly people
compared to a Range Rover,
compared to the dude driving the Range Rover to and from campus multiple days a week because his parents said he could not miss lacrosse camp, but also needed to be in the Michigan Math and Science Scholars Program.
Needless to say, that was so different than how we grew
and
up.
So that was like my first introduction to like really seeing what that meant up close. So when I actually got to college, thank goodness I'm a Gates Millennium Scholar. And so a lot of the things that I thought I would be worried about.
Humble brag.
Slight flex, right?
Pause on that. Slight flex.
Slight flex.
Oh, I'm just a Gates Millennium Scholar. They just pay for, my undergrad and graduate school.
No big.
Thank you. Thank you, Uncle Bill. Thank you, Uncle Bill Gates.
Yes.
He's still on my list of top 5 people I want to meet. It used to be a top 10 list, but unfortunately, the other 5 people have passed away, so it's now a top 5 list.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, but between time, hard living, and COVID, I better start working on that list of people to meet. Okay, but back to the subject here. So the things that I thought I was going to be worried about money-wise in school, I wasn't. Right? Like my tuition was paid, my room and board was paid. I had that little refund check and I was like, okay, well, if I know I'm okay, what can I do differently than what I thought I was going to be doing? Right? I thought I was going to be working 2 jobs through college. I thought I was going to be selling plasma. Like I thought I was going to be doing all types of stuff, and having the scholarship meant that I didn't. So I was like, okay, let my roommate whose parents came, brought all her books, built us a loft, took us to Meijer. For those of you who don't live in the Midwest, Meijer is the Mecca. It's Walmart plus Target. Walmart. They got everything. They got furniture. They got groceries. They got all the stuff.
Yeah, a big department store.
Tires, everything.
Yeah, everything. Said, oh, well, why don't you come to Meijer with us, and anything you girls need, we'll buy. And I was like, anything we need, you'll you'll buy. You just met me today, but okay, I'm coming. Right. Like, so what can I learn from the people living down the hall from me and what their relationship with money is? And then, and I also took the opportunity to not work that first semester. I was like, you know what, maybe since I don't have to, I'll take the first semester and not work and just see what that looks like to not be a working student. Cause I had this full expectation that I would have to work my way through college. And I was like, well, if I take a semester and don't work, what's the worst that can happen? And the funny part about it is like nothing. I had slightly more time to study. I had time to get really active in student government. And that was one of the things that I realized, like, okay, this generational wealth stuff, and not even having the words for it then as an 18-year-old, this generational wealth stuff isn't about the big houses and the fancy cars. It's about being able to take your child and their roommate to Meijer and tell them to cash out, and it's no problem. So how do I get there?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so I took a lot of
that's so key.
Yeah.
And so
that's a privilege that I don't think a lot of people think about. Like being able to go to the store, getting ready for college or a big moment in your life and not having to second guess, like, do I have to put this back in order for that? Like prioritizing stuff. I guess, that's something I just feel like I've gotten a privilege of having to think through, not having to think through.
Or not even having to budget before going. Like those parents probably didn't have a number in their head of like, oh, what do we need? It's just, whatever they need, we can afford, because it's not going to be, they're not going to buy out the Meijer or even adding another kid to come in. Like,
because
whatever you may need.
Exactly. Because
what if you needed a new bed? What if you needed a new whatever? So, sure, bring that in. So
and the gag is they had regular jobs. These were not doctor, lawyer, professional athletes. These were people with regular office jobs. So I spent my time reading books, watching PBS specials on financing and budgeting, and like reading articles, because this was when Amazon was just starting to be the way that you bought books. And so they always, like, once you bought one book from Amazon, they'd say, well, you might want to read this one. And so I'd be like, okay, it's only $2.99, used. I'll go ahead and add that to my cart while I'm also buying my books for Spanish class and chemistry class. And just like seeing that there could be a completely different relationship with money than what I saw growing up. Because what I saw growing up, people thought success was driving a fancy car, living in a certain neighborhood, and wearing certain name brand. What I realized is no, the success was in what I saw in my roommate's parents. They had super regular jobs, but lived in a very nice neighborhood, in a comfortable home with reliable cars, and had money in the bank. So I wanted to go after that.
That's good. Was anybody? I was going to ask, when you were reading these books or kind of doing this discovery in undergrad, was anybody with you? Because I feel like oftentimes when people learn about personal finances or money, they really take the personal in it, and it's like we don't talk about money. We don't talk about anything with anyone or salaries like that. Did you have like friends or anything that was kind of, let's learn this together, or let's talk about how we spend our money? Or was it kind of a self search in the beginning?
What I will say is, to the credit of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, one of the things that they had for us as scholars is one of the first things, I think it was like by 3 weeks into school, they invited everybody who was a scholar that year to a scholar weekend. And depending on where you were going to school, you either went to the East Coast location or the West Coast location. And one of the 30-minute sessions of that was like how to manage finances as a college student. So it gave us tips like buying books used, asking your friends and roommates if they've taken a class the semester before you, if you can use their books, if they don't plan to sell them back. If you have a meal plan, maximizing your meal plan. So like these really simple tips, but that got me thinking like, okay, well, if Bill Gates want me to be a good steward of his money, let me figure out how to be a good steward of his money. Because technically now that he gave it to me, it's my money.
Right. Right.
And so yes and no, I guess like other Gates scholars who went to that class with me, we sometimes talked about money a little bit because we would also, going to that conference, we got a chance to meet each other and would sometimes spend time with each other, either studying or going to the union. So sometimes we talk about it, but I wouldn't say it was like a singular focus. I was more focused on, being really involved with student affairs and student government.
I was just gonna say, as you were kind of telling, like, as we grew up and kind of like how we saw wealth or what we perceive as wealth, right, was like name brands or nice cars, just because that's literally the bubble we kind of grew up in, of like, oh, when I grow up and I get a good, let's say, government paying job, right? Because we have family who either work for the government or worked on the plants, because we're off, everybody on this call is from Detroit, which most of you know by now. That was like the establishments, or that's what we thought wealth was. And then now that you had that opportunity to branch out, which I don't think is a story that I've heard outright, maybe I've heard bits and pieces of that story, but the singular thought was really interesting to hear you just say now. And it's so crazy because you went to this class and you had these different influences, but all of my influences literally came from you. So it's funny how that kind of led, right? Like how that trickled down, how you took the knowledge that you learned. And so one of the questions we definitely want to ask is, like, for those of us who are in our late 20s, or I mean, not those of us, because I'm 31, okay, just to be clear.
Early 30s.
But early, late 20s, early 30s, like, what would be some of that advice that you would instill on them? Because you've instilled so much on me. So, like, what would you say to somebody who's like, man, I really want to get my financial
So there are
together?
3 things.
Specifically for women too, for single women, single Black women too. Because I think we have the idea, and we're not that, me and Nina are not that type, but the idea of like, oh, I'm going to get married and do this. Like, so much of, I hear a lot of women our age, like their view of what their money could be is tied to who they end up marrying, and like hitching their wagon onto that, instead of, this is mine, whatever I have is what I have. And then
individually,
if I meet somebody's son or whatever down the road, like, then that's more income. But kind of even shifting that, how can I as my own person maximize my personal finances?
So there are 3 things that I thought about when I was preparing for our show today. And the thing that I want to make sure people hear first, and I'll try to repeat it again at the end because it's so important, is that when you have control over your money, you have control over life. And I'll tell you a couple of examples of what I mean by that. When you have a little bit of money saved and you feel secure in your financial station, if you have a job that's treating you bad, guess what? You can leave it. If you have a man that's treating you bad, guess what? You can leave it. If you live in a neighborhood that is stressful or dangerous, but you got money in the bank, guess what? You can leave it. So that having control over your finances, whatever that looks like for you, figure it out and get there. So that's the thing that, like, is really the point, is having control can really give you a lot of options. Money is a tool that can be used in a lot of ways. And when you use it as a tool, it gives you access to things. And it's not even that you need the things, but sometimes just having access to them makes you feel a whole lot better about where you are in your life and where you're going. And so, like, if you're single, you're in your late 20s, you're in your early 30s, take a look at your credit report. Are your bills being paid? People are always like, I'm worried about my credit score. You know who doesn't have to worry about their credit score? People who pay their bills on time and don't overspend. And so in order to not overspend, you need to understand how much it costs you to live your life. And what goes into, and that's, budget. Budget is the word that comes up, but budget can be off-putting to someone who feels like they don't know what a budget is or how to build one or when to start. All a budget is a list of all the stuff it costs, a list of all the stuff you need to live the life you like to live, and then the dollar amounts that those things cost, right? And so you have to sit down and think about, well, how do I like to live my life? So let me tell you how I like to live my life, to just walk you through an example. So I like to live my life by, I only want to cook 2 days a week, even though I have a family I'm feeding. I only want to cook on Sunday and then again Thursday. So that means I need to have money in the bank, in my budget, to be able to order takeout on Wednesday night, so I don't have to cook on Wednesday. And then I need to have enough in my budget to be able to order at least one breakfast meal on the weekend and at least one lunch meal on the weekend, so that I can cut down on how many times I have to prepare food for my family. The other way I like to live is when an emergency come up, I like to be like, no problem.
Right.
Throwing money
Same
at a
here.
situation. Yeah.
That is my
that
money
is
for
my
time.
I will
money
pay for convenience.
That is my favorite pastime, is throwing money at problems. You know, one time I busted my tire and I was like, man, I busted my tire. What do I even do? So I get a tow truck. They take me to the tire place and they're like, well, ma'am, we're going to replace your tire, but we always recommend you replace 2 at a time because it helps with your balance. I'm like, sure, no problem. But I was like, well, I got it. So let me ask, how much does it cost to buy 4 tires? And they're like, oh, well, actually, we're running this. So buy 4 tires only costs $100 more than if you were going to buy the 2 tires. I was like, well, go ahead, throw it in the bag. Give me 4 tires. At first, I was like, I can't believe I just spent $600 on tires. But then when I drove that car, do you know that car felt brand new? Felt like a brand new car.
Yeah.
And
when's the next, and it'll be a while before you need tires again. So
right. And so that's the other thing. The third thing. So I told you 2, right? So the first one was have control of your money, have control of your life. 2, understand how much it costs you to live the life you want to live. And then the third piece of that is then go out and get enough money to do that. And so if you're working a job that don't allow you to live the life you like to live, you need to do 2 things at the same time. You need to both reduce your expenses, but also increase your income. And it's a lot faster to decrease your expenses than sometimes it is to increase your income. Because it might take you a few years to increase your income because you might need to change jobs altogether. You might need to go and get some additional training. And I'm not talking about a degree, because degree is an expensive training. You might need a certification or to pass an exam or to get a certificate or to sit through a class, right? So that you can say, oh, how to do this, so that you can get a different job in a different setting, in a different industry, so that you can make more money. So if you, by doing them together, that is the fastest way to get your finances in a better place. So reducing your expenses and looking for ways to increase your income at the same time.
Yeah, that's so important. I think too, even it's kind of funny, similar to when you were talking about how you like started paying attention to the people around you and then you were able to turn and teach Nina. That's similar to how like my dad is Nina's you. And he said he learned about money from working around, like he started off working at MBD Bank and he was around a bunch of white people who just lived their lives differently because they had money. They knew about the stock market. They knew this. And so he was like, they know something that I don't know, or they're privy to something I don't know. So like, let me start doing this. And then in turn, he turned around and started teaching me everything. But one of the key things, and it sounds like what you were saying too, is also understanding your spending habits and like knowing, being truthful with yourself of what you spend.
Being truthful.
Because I think some people, they're like, oh, I this my rent and this my utilities. And yeah, I buy food. Like, I know how much money I spend when I buy food. And because
I like crab legs. I like crab legs and I like lamb chops. And I love going to dinner with my friends.
It's like an East
Side.
Yes.
And I love going to dinner and
when I go out to dinner, appetizer, drinks, everything.
Dessert.
We spend money like drug dealers at brunch.
Yes.
Dessert.
Yeah. But then in turn, I'm also like looking at the cost of soap and say, oh, I can buy this bulk and then keep refilling my soap. Like I choose what things I'm gonna spend my money on and what things I'm gonna be.
I think that's the key.
And budget.
Yeah, I think, and it changes for everybody, right? Because it's not like, I'm not like a handbag shoes person. Like I don't need brand. Like, you know, as far as I'm still at Target, I can do the Target thing all day.
All my purses are from Target.
But like when it comes to what I like to eat or the quality of food, yeah, exactly. Or the quality of food I eat, I'm like, oh, I'll spend a little bit more on that than I will this. You just have to know yourself and be honest with yourself.
When Beyonce goes on tour
about your spending habits. You
right.
gotta have your emergency money.
Yes.
Okay.
And to be willing to try something different than you normally do, right? So like if you normally shop at this grocery store, but your grocery bill keep getting higher and it's still just you in the house, maybe see what Aldi and Trader Joe's is talking about. Maybe shop with a grocery list.
Yes.
Maybe clip some coupons. There was a long time where I was a couponing, like one of those extreme couponers.
I remember that face.
And like I was the woman in the store holding up the line talking about I'm manager, you need to double my coupon.
Yes.
I have moved on from that stage.
It's important to trial and error, because some things is like, because I was in a coupon phase too. And I was like, okay, I can't keep this up. So where am I going to pivot? And it was just like, okay, I'm going to do Costco for some of this bulk stuff that I know I'm going to get at a lower price, regardless of whether I have coupons or not. Because I just honestly was not going to keep couponing and like going through pages and trying to figure out if I do this one, the sequence of the coupons in order to get it to be negative 35 cents. Like I just wasn't
but if you're starting out with trying to get better control of your finances, that's one of the easiest ways. Do you know that rich people don't spend their money? Like one of the books I read, and of course I should have gotten the title for you, but it was like the 1 Minute Millionaire. Yes, that was the title of it, the 1 Minute Millionaire. And this book talked about all the ways that actual millionaires spend and don't spend their money. And like rule number 2 of the 1 Minute Millionaire was always ask for a discount. Always. The worst they can tell you is no. Best they can tell you is, actually, I know you were looking at model B, but model A, we still have a few of them. And if you buy model A, which really is just a year older and works the same and it's brand new because it's here in the store, I can give it to you 25% off. What? I just saved 25%?
Comcast, do that. I do that with Comcast and Xfinity all the time. Is there something cheaper than this? Otherwise, I'm going to leave. And it's, actually, we have a deal. Like, yes, always give.
And you know, I'm a student, so I'm always like, do you have a student discount? They tell me no. Do you have a military discount? They tell me no. Do you have I'm gonna pay cash and you can take the taxes off because I have cash. Like, I'm not gonna swipe a card. I have cash, like paper money right here that I can give you.
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. You know, you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that comes with a level of confidence, because a lot of people don't have they feel awkward talking about money, one, right? And then 2, they don't have the confidence, because they don't like talking about money. They don't have the confidence to be like, it's worth asking, or asking that question to the salesperson when I'm making a major purchase, or I feel a little timid and awkward.
Now,
so
one exception, I play Black business owners what they tell me to pay them. I don't ask for discounts.
Oh yes,
like
absolutely.
Pay women what their rates are.
These corporations,
now, exactly. Like if you are a big box store, yes, I'm gonna ask. But if so and so is a consultant and says her hourly rate is that, then that's what her hourly rate is, and that's what I'm gonna pay.
And I'm gonna do it. Yeah. Yeah. I think too, to your point of millionaires always asking, one of the things that I started doing is like anytime I actually pay something with $1, I make sure my dollar is working for me in some other avenue. So like little things with Lyft and like with the Chase Sapphire credit card, like for every $1 you spend, you can get a point for airlines. Like, so all my Lyft drivers pay for my flights that I fly everywhere with. So if I'm paying for something, my dollar is getting used at least twice. Now that amounts to me spending days doing research to see what credit card has the best perks and like all of this. But in the end, I'm able to kind of make my money work for me in multiple areas that then kind of help extend the use of the dollar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I think you have, for the listeners here, you have 3 women who have, we all love talking about money. I think I've talked about money and career things with both of you at length of time. Yes. But we've also made a lot of mistakes, right? I think we can all agree that we've all made a lot of mistakes. And so, Darla, without telling my personal business, because you know all my mistakes. No, I'm just kidding. What are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen people make, and what's some of the advice you have, like for those big mistakes of like, oh man, I shouldn't have made that purchase. I shouldn't, and I have many of those. What would you say are some of the
for sure? And I was actually going to disagree and be like, I haven't made a whole lot of mistakes since I've been in control of my own money, but I'm a Leo. See, I'm a Leo, so that's how I feel about my life in general. Oh, yes. Like, I either win or I learn, which means I'm winning twice. But anyway, back to your
never wrong.
So biggest financial mistakes. Actually, this is one that I did make. So I guess I'll back up on my previous statement and humble myself. Is not having a savings account / emergency fund. And so if you are trying to figure out, because what's sometimes hard about when you have a lot going on financially, like maybe you have some debt, maybe you have student loans, maybe your rent is too high, and you're just trying to figure out where to even start. One of the best things you can do is to get into the habit of saving and building a small emergency fund. Because if you have a small emergency fund, that keeps you from going further into debt. That keeps you from going into a panic when there's an emergency or something that comes up unexpected, because now it's just inconvenient instead of life altering, right? Like I can give the example of when I was growing up, if a car broke down, that could really throw off my parent for a week, a month. How am I going to get the kids to school? How am I going to get to work? Yeah. If they were working a job that they only got paid when they were there, then that threw off the budget for weeks at a time, right? So having a small emergency fund can make something like that go from being detrimental to, oh, it's a little inconvenient. And so my suggestion to anyone who's thinking about where to start is start by building a small emergency fund. $1,000 is the goal. If that feels too far out of reach, $500 can help you solve a lot of problems. If you got $500 cash you can put your hand on, that can help you solve many a problem, or at least get you closer to the solution and buy you enough time to figure out how to get the rest of it. And so if you're trying to figure out, well, how do I even come up with $500? I told you my finances are a mess. Is you have to, again, look at your budget, look at how you're living your life and how you're spending your money, and figure out what's the amount that you can put aside that you will never touch again. Because what is far more powerful is if you figure out you can only set aside $5 every check, but that is $5 you know you'll never have to go back and touch. That's way more powerful than putting away 100, going to take 20 from it, going to take another 30 from it, going to take 50 from it. Oh, wait.
Been married too.
Then the 100 is gone. Whereas if you put away $5, the $5 didn't get you were okay with it. And then the next paycheck, $5. Guess what? After a couple of months, you got a little money saved. And then you look in your savings account and be like, oh, well, I didn't miss that $5. Maybe I can bump it to 10 and see how it feels. And if 10 doesn't feel right, bump it back to 5, because the most important thing is being consistent.
I feel like some of this stuff too has to be, at least from what I know, the people who I've grown around, and even like Nina, and it's folks who it's almost in their personality trait to kind of think ahead in the future, or see the benefit of like, oh, I'll save this for in the future, as opposed to people that I know that are more spontaneous or just kind of think in the moment. Like for them, this would have to be more of an exercise to start thinking in that way of planning for the future, or thinking this is only $5, but compounded every paycheck I get, I'm contributing $5. Eventually I'm going to have something that's worthy of a savings, as opposed to, oh, it's only $5. I can't, what is $5 going to do with me? I feel like that's almost a mindset shift for some folks that would have to start doing that as well.
It definitely,
if it's not like in their personality, because I'm cheap by personality. Like whether I had $0 or $1 million, I feel like I'm always going to be cheap, or like I'm not spending that I ain't spending that much money on that. Like I don't need it that bad. So that helps me with the money, because I'm not like, I'm also very risk averse. So I'm not about, oh yeah, I'll try this and spend this, and so I feel like for a lot of folks, it's a mindset shift.
It is
to either really start
practicing. And one of the horrible things about social media is like, unfortunately, people flexing or showing off things that they do have and making you feel like what you have. And so you also have to get to a point in loving and appreciating where you are in your life today, that what other people have to say don't matter. Yeah. Now, again, as a Leo, I never care what people think about me, which sometimes gets me in trouble.
Yeah. I know you got a Leo, a Capricorn, and an Aquarius. So literally no one on this call cares what other people think. So we're honestly probably the worst.
We actually are.
Because we all be like, oh yeah, I really don't care, sis. I'm gonna do me.
Yeah. It looks, if it works.
But either way, either way. Yeah, it does. I mean, Darla and I grew up in the same lower middle class household. And so our priorities, because I think it's safe to say, Darla, that we both grew up with the mentality of like, I never want to be broke again, or like, that's how we operate. That's how I operate. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't ever want to go back to that. So I'm constantly thinking about setting up my future, setting up a way in which I can continue to be comfortable. Because I remember dreaming of the house that I have now and dreaming of the carefree mentality that I have with some of the things I enjoy, like getting my nails done or getting my hair done. Like I used to dream like one day I'm going to be able to do that. And that helped propel me to some more responsible choices, even though not all of them were responsible, but not everybody responds that way when they grow up poor. They grow up and like, well, I might be broke again, so let me spend it all.
Yeah.
It just really depends on which side of the coin.
No, and I saw a lot of and experienced a lot of feast and then famine, feast and then famine. And the truth is, it's because it costs a lot of money and time to be poor. And so when you are poor and you've been without, as soon as you get something, you're just so happy to have something. And you know that there's bills that need to be paid and there are responsibilities that you're behind on, but you're like, can I just get a break and enjoy something? And so that's
because you're still human.
Right. So then you feast a little bit and you're like, okay, I feel a little better. So now I can get through this season of famine, not realizing that you're also contributing a little bit more to that famine because you just needed a break from the famine. Right.
Yeah. And if everything around you that's what you see, if you only see that constant cycle of it, then you think that that's how life is. I remember my big aha moment was my parents used to drive us on Jefferson along the water in Grosse Pointe. So it's like nice, maybe $2 million, $3 million. They're not like amazing mansions, but they're bigger than the house that I grew up in. And the idea that these type of houses, to your point, with people with regular jobs, probably a hell of a lot of generational wealth, but more so like a pharmacist or, something maybe with a college degree,
a teacher.
And it's like, wait a minute, people are living like this. And this is Grosse Pointe and I live in Detroit. This is 15 minutes away from me. And people are living a completely different life. And you're telling me the difference is money, to your point of like control. So that was, I want this. And this is 15 minutes from me. I can ride my bike to see something like this. I think that was my shift of like, this isn't just movie stars and, athletes and things far, far in the distance. Like this is something that's attainable. What do I have to do to obtain it and be able to get to share that wealth and be able to give my kids that and to have their kids to be able to experience that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think what is one of the most valuable things I gained from attending a university and being away from home. Like, yeah, the degree is really helpful and is really what has allowed me to build a career, right? But more than anything was literally seeing people my age just having a completely different relationship with money, having completely different relationships with other people and how they live their lives. And so it just like, it sparked something in me like, oh, okay, so there is a different way. And even if I can't ask them directly, people write books all day. I can go read a book. And now they're on audio.
People love talking about themselves.
Right, I can listen.
People love talking about themselves. So
oh yeah,
go on YouTube and listen.
Some people will put you on game. So as I alluded to earlier, you're married, because I mentioned that I was like, oh, Darla Bishop. It's weird to hear that said out loud. And you have two beautiful children. One which you delivered in a pandemic.
Also in my living room.
Which my sister's in her living room by herself, y'all. It's a crazy.
We'll talk about
story,
that another
crazy
week.
story. But my niece.
Talk about saving some money.
Maybe
talk about saving some money.
Right, that hospital.
Nah, we can do this here.
Wait, you know what? That hospital bill
actually was only $80 because they just had to make sure we was okay.
Oh.
I did all the work.
Okay, see the personal
babe, get the kitchen cutters here. Right. I love efficiency. Let's go.
So you're married, 2 kids, but your money game has to my knowledge not changed. Like your focus on building wealth for yourself and now for your family has not changed. So like how have you adjusted to marriage and kids? How has it, from the inside, how would you say?
So I do have to be really clear about something. My husband and I, when we were getting serious, we met and dated in college. We were starting to get serious. I made it crystal clear to him that money was my thing, that like I had strong feelings about money that we had to have a budget, and that if we were going to be serious, we needed to do money deliberately, or else it wasn't going to work for me, because money was at that time a trigger. Now I'm in a much better place thanks to hours and hours and hours and hours of therapy. Find a therapist, therapyblackgirls.com. So even at the beginning of our relationship, we established a way that we would do our money together. So we actually have what we call money meetings, and we have them quarterly, where we basically sit down and look at our household budget, make sure that and we use a hybrid approach where it's my money, his money, and our money. And so we, for the our money column, we make sure that we're putting enough money into the shared account that goes for our shared expenses. You know, do we need to move up or down? Do we have enough money for our shared savings? Are we saving enough? You know, do we need to move up and down? We have some travel coming up, or there's a holiday or some weddings. You know, how are we going to pay for those activities? Okay, we'll take some money out of this account. You take care of your friend's wedding gift. I'll take care of my friend's wedding gift, right? We basically like just plan out how the next few months of our money is going to go. And we, to this day, still do that. And so what has changed since we've had children is we actually have more frequent mini meetings. And so we still have our quarterly cadence, but if something comes up for the kids, we'll like actually pull up our notes from the previous official meeting and be like, okay, what did we decide about this?
See, I take notes.
Yeah,
I love it. So there's minutes to every meeting.
Yes, we have an agenda. We have an agenda and we have notes. And I mean, the notes aren't super formal. It's like, it's a bullet point list of, we're going to talk about these 10 things. And then it's like, whatever the decision was for item number 2. So for daycare, we decided that we were going to pay it on this credit card because we want to get the points. And so then when the daycare bill changed a little bit because we added the second kid, it was like, wait, what did we say we're going to do about daycare? Oh, we're going to pay it on the credit card. Okay, cool. All right. So let's make sure it's set up for the credit card. So that kind of thing. And so go ahead.
I was going to say, is this kind of coming into it? Would you say that you were more financially literate, or were you guys kind of equally financially literate? And like, is it more of you teaching your knowledge and kind of sharing, or is it both of you kind of having a good set of knowledge and coming together? Because this sounds great, but like, I can just imagine if someone had zero knowledge and coming into a partnership, it's kind of being able to balance out and educate. So was there a level of like educating each other, or saying, hey, we really need to understand real estate, so let's start learning about this, or we need to understand this for our budget, so understanding this, kind of, what was that for you all?
So I haven't shared this part, but you guys have really figured out that I'm a control enthusiast.
Hi, nice to meet you. So am I.
So we got to do a sister episode another time, so I can tell y'all how Darla really be punking people. Like, Darla has at the same restaurants and the same job sometimes, and I have stories. So a control enthusiast, this is the first time I'm hearing this. That's hilarious. But continue. I'm not going to talk about right now.
So I am a reformed control freak. I have downgraded to a control enthusiast. But at the time, because again, I already stated, money was like a trigger for me. Like I was like really motivated to figure out how to have a different life. And so I had read a ton of books. I will say that I think at the time my husband had some baseline knowledge. So if we were going to give it a percentage, I was probably 75% of the knowledge and he was 25% of the knowledge. Like, he knew about budgets. He knew about some real estate because of his own parents and their experiences. But because I had been motivated the few years being in college and grad student, I had read a ton I did bring a little bit more to the table. I made it clear, like, I need to be in control of our money, because that's how I'm dealing with my trauma and my trigger. Is like, if I control it, then I feel good about it. And he was like,
and you have to know it's trauma, and you have to be able to recognize it and identify it, and still say, I need a partner who's going to help me, who knows this about me and knows that this is a trigger for me and won't get offended because I want to have a little bit more.
And he's
self-awareness.
And he's military, so he sometimes jokes and said, oh, right, that's your PTSD. When I do something like, I'm not paying for that, or I can get that for free from our neighbor, or he'll be like, oh, right, your PTSD. Right. So he was okay with that. And he was like, all right, so you want to drive? Fine. No problem. Yeah. And so I think the big shift too was before we were married. I should have talked about this when we were talking about financial mistakes. So I'll weave it in a little bit. Before we were married, I was doing a lot to help my family, included our brother, my mom, other relatives. Absolutely. But that was a priority for me. Because I also realized that the people around me were absolutely doing their very best that they could. And so it was not their fault that where we were, and that if they had I had additional resources, so let me sprinkle resources at them so that they could be in a better and different place, right? And so that's one of the reasons that pushed us into the hybrid financial model as a couple, is because one, I didn't want him to be responsible for the things that I had taken on responsibility for my siblings and my other family members. And two, I didn't want him to have ground to say anything about it, because that was a priority for me. And I couldn't have him telling me, hey, this month things are a little tight. You can't take care of that for fill in the blank. Nope, that's not a discussion that's on the table, because this is important to me. So what has shifted is over the years, I have literally, and I've told people this as they were coming off, I was like, Nina, you have now graduated from graduate school. You are coming off the payroll. So how much time do you need to come off the payroll? Do you need 6 months? Do you need a year? Because you are coming off the payroll. And so I'm not going to just drop you, but it's time for you to take over this bill. And this is the part that I want to talk.
Here's your notice,
right? And this is the part I want to talk about in terms of financial mistakes. What I often see as a financial mistake, and luckily I had read a book about it before I got into it, so I knew better, was the desire to help your family outweighing your priorities. And so if you want to help your family, I highly encourage you to do it. It makes you feel good. It helps you worry less about whether they're going to be okay. And it's important for you to figure out a way to do it that fits, actually make it a budget. So one of the best things that I did based off of a book I read was, instead of saying, and I don't want to name the family member. So family member A would call, and I noticed they would call not month, but maybe every 2 months and say, hey, can you help me with fill in the blank? And I would be like, sure, I have it. But it's actually really tough, because I keep a budget for me to just help you when you need to, but I want to help you and I have it. So it sounds like about every other month you have an expense that's $150 that's hard for you to handle. Would it be okay for me to take over a bill for you? Do you have a bill that's $75 or $100 every month that I could just pay? And I'll add it to my budget list, and then it becomes my bill to pay. So now I freed up that $75 or $100 that you seem to be short, but it fits into my budget, so that it's now a line item on my budget. So find a way to help the family members you want to help that fits in your budget. And one of the easiest way I found to do that was to take over a bill. So for one family member, it was a cell phone payment. For another family member, it was their car insurance. For another family member, these might all be the same family member. I'm not trying to tell their business. It might have been their car payment, like whatever, right? But that was now my bill that I took over for them. So that left them a little bit more wiggle room in their budget to either save or to handle when that emergency came up. So I wasn't getting the random calls, and so everybody was good.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and we don't even have enough bandwidth to cover this in this episode, but just think about, Darla is the oldest sibling of three, me and my brother. And I'm sure at this time when she was in college, this is like a 20-ish-year-old taking care of family members and her siblings and her mother. That is, and just clearly I was there, I know, but just hearing and reflecting, and even how you've turned it into these life lessons that you're like, okay, I can go forth and kind of give this advice, but just sitting with that, if the listeners could just sit with that, how much pressure that is, and how many other Black girls have the same amount of pressure and have to figure out how to take care of their family, but also build wealth for themselves. And then eventually add a husband and kids to that and figure out, okay, I'm stretched in so many different ways. Just as you were saying, the weaning off and being like, all right, I've given you a lot of my time and I've helped to build some stability for this family, but I have to focus on myself now. And pulling back is so important. So I really hope that the listeners, like I said, that's a whole nother episode. Yeah, because Darla
that's a very common. I feel like that's a very common
amazing
story too, of either first generation college student, or even if you're not going to college, but like the first one to make it, or quote unquote, whatever capacity that could be.
Yes.
But you're like, you're not so far removed from poverty or where you were before that there's not everyone else in your family looking back at you saying like, hey, like, can I get help? Can I remember we had, when I was back at Microsoft, we had like the Black employees. A lot of us were straight out of college, and we were talking about like, you know, Microsoft has, and coming out of engineering, great salaries and all that type of stuff. And we were just venting of how different our money is and where it goes compared to our white counterparts. Everyone was like, oh, I pay this bill now, I do this. Like, everyone's so proud of me, but I'm taking care of this person, this person, this person. So my $120 annual salary or whatever, you know, straight out of college they were making, they're like, in reality, it's like 70, 60, living in expensive ass Seattle because of all the other things that I have to pay for. I'm not running out to buy a car or do all these other things that my white counterparts are doing. So it's not the same. It doesn't.
On top of having student loans.
And here we
on
are.
top of student loans.
And here we are, the cumulative effect of generational wealth and the regular stuff, just the regular stuff, right? The fact that now, in order to help my family members, when I was fresh out of grad school, I had my own bills, which, you know, I had a budget. Plus I added somebody else's cell phone, plus somebody else's insurance, because that was the way that I could contribute while also building my own stuff, right? Exactly that.
Yes.
Yeah. No, Darla, you are amazing, and your story is resonating. It's probably going to resonate with so many people, but it's so true. It's a lot of pressure. So, you know, I know you got kids with an S and a husband and a household. So, you know, I know our time with you is limited.
It's the golden time of nap time.
Right. So what resources would you suggest to our listeners?
So
or even search keywords. Even search keywords if it's not like a specific title or anything.
So
where to start.
So there are several celebrity financial people, right? And they all have a slightly different style. There's one that I particularly like, not because his materials are special or incredibly different than the others, but just because, unlike the others, he gives you a like, here's what you do first, here's what you do second, here's what you do third. And that's Dave Ramsey. He does lean Christian, and so there's a lot of God and stuff in his talk. But if you just Google Dave Ramsey baby steps, if you don't know where to start, he has a good framework for where to start. Because I think, like, I used to be a Susie Orman head. Susie was my girl. I read all her books. I paid for her CDs. I had the membership to her website so I could get the alerts when a new book came out. But I think what's different about her versus Dave is Dave, again, just gives you like, here's where you start, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you're not sure where to start, that's really helpful. There are some really good podcasts out there. If you literally just search wherever you get your podcast, personal finance, and just listen to the first 10 minutes, you know, within 10 minutes, if you like the way people talk about things. And then once you find the podcast that you like, listen to it every once in a while when you're in the car. I mean, hopefully you stay in your butt at home because it's a panorama. And so you're not in the car a whole lot, but if you are in the car, like, listen to that podcast.
Just listening. One podcast I do really like, and I don't know, Darla, if you listen to this,
yes,
Money Girl podcast. I don't know. We've probably talked about this before.
Yeah.
It's nice and short. It's short and quick to the point. It's not like they hardly ever go over 45 minutes. But I feel like it's actually taught me a few different things where I was like, oh, let me go look at that on my credit report, or let me go see how I can resolve that.
If you prefer to read content online, NerdWallet is a great place. They have brief articles, and I mean, they are also trying to sell a bunch of stuff, like get you to apply for this credit card or stuff. So if you can ignore that noise, their articles are actually really good, and they provide sources. And then
they're great on comparing credit card points and perks and stuff like that. Cause I always go to NerdWallet for like.
That's how I decided to get my Sapphire. Yeah, and Darla, and of course I call Darla. And I think you had a
I had a Sapphire too, yeah.
And then
but I was on NerdWallet, like, what's the best one? What makes sense for me? Cause it's not gonna be the best for everybody, but based on your spendings and stuff.
Yeah, and then if you've never really tackled trying to make a budget, You Need a Budget, YNAB, is really good. I don't personally use it because I just have a system that I've used for like the last 15 years and it works fine, but I have played with the tool and recommended it to other people because it's a really good way to see where your money is going and how to truly build a budget on how you really spend your money, not just how you think you spend your money.
Yeah, those are two very different things of what actually.
Yes, I'm like, who the fuck keep going to Target? It's me. It's no one else.
Yes. Step one: when you go to Target, have a list. Don't go off of vibes, okay? Because vibes will knock you out of budget every time.
I just stopped going to Target. I keep my Target runs very, very far.
One thing that has helped me with Target is I actually use the drive-up. You make your order on the app.
Oh, make your order.
And it was just the 2 or 3 things you ordered. So that was it.
That's real. No, that's a good one. Okay. So, thank you for your financial tips. And I'm sure, we would love to have you on the show again, maybe answering some listener questions. So, if you're a listener out there and you have a question, so go ahead and send it to us. You can send it to us at queentonepod@gmail.com, or you can DM us either on Instagram or Twitter, which is also queentonepod. So thank you, Darla, for coming and sharing a little bit of your story with us. There's so much more to you that I would love to get to in the future, but we're really appreciative.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm not going to share my social because I don't use it. It would just be screaming into a void. So if y'all have questions,
just go ahead and DM
if y'all
me.
have questions for me, send them to Queen's Home Pod, and then they'll get them to me.
On this theme of this week, because now I'm thinking back to what I said about Zendaya, and I just really got to get some folks together this week. Zendaya. Yeah. I need to get some folks together. I don't even want to wait to the end, because what y'all did to Chloe Bailey this week, y'all some miserable ass heifers. And by y'all, I don't even mean our listeners.
It's mostly women too.
Listeners. Yeah. It is. It's absolutely.
Yes. If y'all haven't realized, we're about to enter into tone check.
Tone check. Let's just do the tone check earlier. So tone check. So Chloe and Holly, another group of Disney stars. So that's why I was like, just
better known as Beyonce's Neos.
Right. They pledged. They crossed. And, they have a second album out. They put out this past summer, right? 2020 summer.
They were
or something like that.
Tennis court with.
Yeah. Ungodly Hour. They've given us several thousand tennis court performances.
Yes.
But they are, they've grown up before a lot of our eyes. They started out on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Chloe is now 22, and Halle, who's 20. Currently starring in a Disney's Little Mermaid, the first Black Little Mermaid, which I'm super excited about. She's 20. And they separated their accounts because Holly needs to be in London or wherever they're taping, the Little Mermaid, and Chloe is in LA. And so they have 2 separate accounts now, which for the fans, this is something new to us, but not new to them because apparently they each have Instas, according to Chloe. So Chloe's Instagram has very fastly become my favorite Instagram account. I might even check the box for notifications, and I have that for no account.
Right.
But I love it just because she's beautiful. She's gorgeous, and she's always in these outfits, and it's just fun to see her in her element and see them separate their personalities. Now, Holly is more kind of laid back. She's very matter of fact.
Yeah. Holly is an Aries, right? And Chloe is a Cancer, and Chloe is such a Cancer, which is why
cries every
I'm ready to fight. So, but continue.
Right. So, they have their own accounts. I love both their accounts, but it's just something about Chloe being able to she's very what I perceive in her performances to be a little bit more sensual, sexual, in her performances, and really coming into her own, which I admire. It's just something about seeing a young woman do that, and music that I love. I love seeing it. So her posts are a little bit more sexual, and also Holly is Disney. She's not gonna be doing that.
That's what people are like. Chloe was like, I ain't signed no contract with Disney, so I don't have to. Have to.
So she can do what she wants, and she's grown. She's a young woman. She's a grown young woman. And so, you know, she did the what is it
Busted
called?
challenge.
Busted challenge. She literally did the best busted challenge.
She won.
The best from the Versace robe and bonnet, which already was killing y'all. Was killing me personally because I ain't got that shit. And then she looked really good. Booty was popping. Like it was.
She was using her 22-year-old. Like
absolutely. Then she put some other videos up of her dancing. She did another video where she was in a t-shirt and her underwear, kind of she was lighting some incense and stuff like that. And so then I guess people are starting to tweet at her and comment like, "Oh, you're doing too much to grab attention. Like you don't need to do this good girl act, turning into a bad girl." Yeah,
like, you're supposed to be a role model. And the killing thing about this is, and this is all coming from like social media, writing articles stuff, but the majority of people that I saw that had something negative to say about Chloe were grown ass Black women, not men as much. Like I feel like this was men stayed out of,
but they always go slut shame. I mean, like not that it's more acceptable, but it's expected. No, it's like the sky's blue. A guy is slut shaming Chloe. Fine. All right.
But these women who I did not expect to start like saying anything, and it's like the same women who had some shit to say when WAP came out. It's like you didn't live your younger life, or you're starting to realize that the cheat code to life that we've been taught about being pure and being modest and being all of that is supposed to save you or put you in a different category or whatever bullshit to be presentable or considered worthy in the eyes of men. And you're projecting that onto a 22-year-old who's doing nothing other than doing what you didn't have the courage to do when your ass was 22.
Right. So, or the body to do, because yes,
the body, the face, the spirit, whatever.
I get it. I mean, I don't get it.
No, because all I'm saying
sure
is
you understand.
Yeah, because I'm like, I wish I would have had her confidence and everything at 22. I didn't, but girl, live your life at 22 because you're just gonna be 10 times better off. But then these motherfuckers had the nerve to hurt her feelings so much that she got on Instagram Live trying to explain herself and started crying, talking about how she's learning to love herself. And so this is a way that she can express it. And honestly, to the point of like little sisters, because I feel like I felt this way about them for a long time. Like I wanted the names to go back to Aria. I wanted the names, these names.
Yeah.
Because I fight. I have no problem hurting Chloe's feelings like that. And as a Capricorn, if she's a Cancer, I feel like Capricorns protect Cancers, and that's just like an innate. Y'all need to leave.
You just feel a drop there. Leave her the grown. But I was proud of her though, because she has not stopped posting her sexy or like more sensual posts. She explained like, look, like I've struggled with I've had my own insecurities, but when I perform, when I'm making music, and most of the things that she's doing, dancing or playing music or whatever, that's when she's like giving us these posts, and I live.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, unfollow. Block. There's so many different things you can do than being. She's not hurting anybody.
And then people were showing pictures of like Beyonce. I think Crazy in Love came out when Beyonce was 22, and then Rihanna. They were showing like pictures and basically saying, "This is what artists do." One, like as an artist thing, like this is what artists do when they're 22 years old. So why are y'all making such a big deal? And then if y'all saw them when they were younger, that's something y'all have to get over.
Have Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah. And in direct contrast,
I mean, if Beyonce had Instagram and TikTok, she would have been doing the same shit in her little ghetto ass Houston accent, on Instagram, doing the same stuff.
Yeah, and in complete contrast to, and we ain't got to talk about him too much because I forgot that he had all these allegations around him, Trey Songz. But then when you see how the internet reacts when Trey Songz' full frontal dick is on the internet, and it's
don't nobody give a fuck.
It was a nice video, but like
don't nobody
why is it such a contrast?
Not for me, for obvious reasons, but
for me for obvious reasons. But why is this so drastically different that that's okay. And then you have
right, men can own their sexuality. This is the same shit where T.I., who's now under his own sexual accusations, when they're like, oh, we need to check the hymens of our daughters, but your son is there, can fuck whoever he wants. And this is like on their show, and this almost in the same breath. Yeah. So it's just like, you know what, fuck all these people, Chloe. Don't listen to them. Keep doing your thing, sis, because if I had that body, okay? And there's people out here paying good money. It's Kardashian money.
Kardashians,
to have,
yes.
Yeah, to have
Chloe's natural body. Yeah.
Her natural ass body. Her natural ass hair.
Yeah.
So,
and to clear up a rumor of what other people were saying, which is not true, because I don't know if y'all watch, but I watched the Tea Times on Thursday where they read listener letters. It's adorable. But they didn't break up their Instagram accounts so that Chloe could, quote unquote, be out here asking for attention. Yeah, they broke up their Instagram accounts because they are so homesick for each other that they still wanted to do Tea Time where they go on Instagram Live and talk to but they can't do it because Hailey is in London and Chloe is still in LA.
Are people just dumb? They're obtuse for no. Okay, that's
I think they're in a pandemic. And they don't have anything else to say, so they can let out all of their grievances and triggers and traumas and project onto other people, and then they do it on the internet. So Chloe, keep doing you, keep being an amazing singer, producer. Because no one seems to show the videos where she's producing music and sounds like a fucking
boss. She's bomb. Like, she's so talented. Oh, and by the way, since I switched from Apple Music to Spotify, I'm giving it a couple months to see if I actually like it. I'm not sold. No, I'm not sold. But I have been doing it. But Chloe and Hailey have a Spotify. Okay, Chloe and Hailey have a Spotify single covering Janae, which I was this year. Today's years old when I realized it wasn't Zayn and it was pronounced Janae. I never knew that.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
Their first album, it says pronounced Janae.
I didn't, but yeah, I wouldn't. I just know their singles, and I have seen Zayn, right? Zhane. I've never actually heard anybody say, "Oh, and now finding my love, Janae." I've never. So anyway, they covered their song and
that harmony on that song.
And Hailey's voice on "Finding My Love," or is that what it's called?
Sending My Love.
Sending My Love. It is amazing. Yes. That cover is so bomb, y'all. Y'all should go listen to it.
It's their voices and their harmonies are instruments. Yeah.
It's perfect for the song. It's a great cover.
Yeah. Spotify has a lot of singles like that too. Just,
Yeah, so I'm digging it. It's okay. We'll see.
The algorithms are 10 times better.
Lyrics.
They have lyrics.
Not all of them though, because when I was trying to rap Pussy Talk by the City Girls, they didn't have the lyrics.
Oh, okay.
And me and my homegirl, which was just me, was upset.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
This episode was produced by us and edited by Dana Cole. Our theme music is the track Same by Ricky Ells. Be sure to check it out on all streaming platforms. For questions, comments, feedback, or topic suggestions, hit us up at queentonepod@gmail.com. Be sure to also check us out and follow on Instagram and Twitter @queentonepod. Thanks for listening.